I am working with black polymer clay that I have previously conditioned and passed through the setting number 2 of my Atlas pasta machine, meaning the setting after the largest setting of my pasta machine. And then I am going to use some oval shaped cutters to make a flower shape for my brooch. And I'm using cutters in several sizes. And I will also use a small square cutter as well to make this flower-like shape. And then I'm going to put the excess clay through the pasta machine through the same setting. And I'm going to use this sheet of polymer clay to make the back of the brooch. And I'm using my dotting tool to make a free-form flower shape, and this is going to be visible on the back of the brooch. And then you'll just have to flip this textured freehand textured sheet of polymer clay. And then I'm going to attach my brooch component, and I'm using a little bit of liquid clay that I'm applying on both sides of the brooch element. And I am also pressing slightly this element into the sheet of polymer clay that is going to be the back of the brooch. Then you'll just have to put your elements on top, and I'm slightly arranging them on top of the brooch element as well. And then it is very important to connect them very well, and you should not leave gaps in between these elements, because we are going to use a dimensional varnish. You can also use resin on top, and if you have gaps in between these elements, your varnish or your resin will leak through those gaps. And I have to tell you that it was easier to make simpler round or oval cabochons, because I didn't have to worry about the varnish leaking through anyway. And in order to avoid such spillings on the back of your pieces, I recommend you to put these pieces on top of a cutter and then apply varnish or resin. And then you'll just have to use your craft knife and remove the excess clay. Don't forget to press your pieces into the base. And as always, I encourage you to take the time and smooth off the edges and make sure that your pieces look nice, and you won't have to sand your pieces after baking. I'm making sure that my pieces are well attached and well connected, and that I don't have gaps in between. I'm working a little bit on the shape as well and removing the excess clay. I'm smoothing off the edges as well. And again, I'm pressing these elements to have a very good connection and to make sure there are no gaps in between. And this is really important because you don't want your product to leak, and it will leak on the sides and then underneath your brooch. And I'm making sure that my the back of the brooch looks nice as well. And I'm using baking paper to press the elements together. And then when you are happy with the look of your piece, you can put your clay piece into the oven for 40 minutes at the temperature recommended by the polymer clay manufacturer. Let the clay cool down. And then I'm just going to use super glue to glue nail art foils. You might want to use gloves for this part of the project because this is very difficult to use super glue and not end up with with the product on your hands, and it's not a very comfortable feeling to have super glue dried on your fingertips. And then I decide which colors and which pattern I want to use for my brooch, because as you may already know, nail art foils come in so many patterns and holographic effects and floral effects and all kind of beautiful combinations and color combinations. And you have also one color nail art pieces, but you also have pieces that have gradients or several colors, and they will make beautiful holographic effects on your pieces, and you will end up with very bright and shiny elements, decorations on your polymer clay pieces. I personally love nail art foils and I love using them with polymer clay. And sometimes you don't manage to decorate a larger piece in the first setting, so you might need to add a little bit more super glue in the areas where you notice that the pattern did not transfer. Or if you notice this immediately, you could try with another piece of nail art foil and try to do it without applying super glue. And if you notice that there is no glue or that the glue has dried, you should apply a little bit more glue and then let the glue sit a little bit 30-40 seconds, and then apply nail art foils, and then wait a little bit before removing the nail art foil. And sometimes I remove just a little bit of the foil, and I'm taking a look to see if the pattern starts to transfer, and if needed I might wait a little bit more, or sometimes I might need to press slightly on the nail art foil to help the pattern transfer. And then I'm going to use black acrylic ink and a silkscreen to silkscreen a pattern, and as you can see I'm working with my blade, and this is not the most recommended way of applying silkscreen, because you have to be very careful not to hurt your fingers with the blade. I'm doing this very often, so I'm used to using my blade, and I'm very careful not to hurt my fingers. You can use a piece of cardboard or an old credit card, or a shop card. You can use other elements to apply the acrylic paint on top of the silkscreen. You don't have to use your blade. And then you'll have to allow the paint to dry. And in order to add a little bit more interest in my pieces, and because I didn't like the piece with so much black, I liked some areas with black but not the entire piece, so I decided to add a little bit of silver metallic mica powder on some areas, not on the entire piece. And you can use your fingers after allowing the paint to dry, of course, and you can use your fingers, you can use a brush or any other tool to apply mica powder. And then I am going to finish my pieces by applying 2 coats of dimensional varnish, and this is a varnish that I'm using diamond glaze, and this is a varnish that has always worked very well for my pieces. Still, I know that in some areas and in some in other weather conditions, this product might not work so well, so you should test it, or anyway you should read reviews from people living in your area to make sure that this product works in the weather conditions where you live. If not, you can always finish by applying resin, and you'll have a beautiful top coat that will make your pieces look like faux dichroic. And for these pieces, I applied this dimensional coat of varnish, this coat of dimensional varnish, and then I let the varnish dry for 7-8 hours at least. And then I applied a second coat because I really wanted to have a very beautiful glass-like, dome-like effect on top. And with 2 coats, it really had a slightly domed and beautiful finish. And I had this beautiful domed finish effect for my pieces, and I really loved it. And here are the finished pieces, and I hope that you will try this technique in your work, and I hope that you are inspired to create more using polymer clay.